Sure got lower since
People could,
how could it?
you know,
Yeah. This time I will call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everyone here this evening. I'd note for the record or for the audience and both that are watching online as well as those that are here, the council is all wearing masks as well as staff, and that's in accordance with the OSHA guidelines that we are subject to. So we're following the health and OSHA guidelines. So all our staff as well as the council are wearing masks this evening. We have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. The first item then would be the introduction of one of our newer staff, and it's actually a newer position. So I'll ask Addie Wilbaum to come forward and introduce yourself as our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coordinator. Addie.
Hi, so yeah, my name is Addie Wilbaum. I am from Marshall. I've lived here since I was 7. I went to Holy Redeemer School here, and then I went to the high school. I was really into band and speech. I've always been really involved in this community. I ended up leaving Marshall for a bit, but found myself back here studying at SMSU. I'm majoring in political science with a minor in Spanish. Well, I saw this job opening and I knew it was exactly what I needed to do. So far this year, I've been pretty busy. We have a up and running web page for the DEI Commission. It has all sorts of information of resources that are around here. It's kind of like a one-stop shop for everything to kind of improve Marshall and help our community members that may not be getting the help that some of us are. I've been really busy with that for the city side. I'm also working on doing a microaggressions training that will be next week with the commission. And then I've been really busy with the Southwest Adult Basic Education side of it. We are working with a grant from the Minnesota Department of Education to find out where there are inequities in adult education. So we are working on kind of talking to the administration, the educators, and the learners to find out where in the system there are issues that can be fixed. And eventually we are gonna come up with some policy changes that we will give to the Department of Education to hopefully improve the system. So I've been really busy over the past couple of months I've been working with here, and I'm loving the work I'm doing so far.
Okay, well, welcome, Addie. Kyle Box, our city clerk, is our staff that works most closely with you and the DEI Commission, and John DeCramer is our liaison from the council. Either one of you have anything you want to add at this time?
No, just Addie jumped right in and hit the ground running, so that was good.
Well, welcome, Addie.
Thank you.
We'll move forward with the agenda then, and agenda item number 2 would be to consider the approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting that was held on December 14th, 2021. The council does have those minutes. Are there any corrections to note at this time?
Move to approve.
Motion by Don, seconded by Steve to approve the minutes as they have been presented. We'll move to a vote on that motion. We'll close the voting, and the motion passes. We'll move then to the public hearing that we have this evening. This is a public hearing on the adoption of the amendments and revisions to various ordinance sections. So to conduct this public hearing, I will call on Ilya Gutman from our building department.
Thank you, Mayor Council. These ordinance revisions mostly relate to zoning ordinances as far as buildings and parking. I will go over the most major changes. We are asking to provide the building numbers in the alley on all buildings that have L in the back. We are changing a little bit the street names ordinance to make it more consistent and straightforward. We are changing parking regulations to allow to allow parking of RVs on the residential lots and in the around residential areas to make it easier for residents to store their RVs. And we also changed a few locations where winter parking regulations and allow parking in the summer in those areas. And finally, we added a new section that relates to dead and damaged trees that people will have to remove it, similar to tall grass. And that's basically a summary of it. It's not very significant, but it makes life easier for people.
Thank you. Are there any questions or input as part of the public hearing, either from members of the audience or from the council? Russ?
Mr. Mayor, Ilya, section 66104, letter B2. It says avenue, a roadway running north and south, or northwest and southeast. I live on 105 West Thomas Avenue, and I don't believe that avenue runs either one of those directions.
Well, we have to admit that a lot of streets in Marshall are not following this
Okay,
system, and we are not going to change any names. It's
Okay.
just for the future.
This will
All right.
only be for new, right?
Right, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, for new subdivisions.
all right, thank you.
Any other input as part of the public hearing? If not, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Don, seconded by Jim. To close the public hearing, discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll now consider the adoption of the amendment and revisions. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the changes.
Second,
Motion by John, seconded by Russ. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Thank you, Ilya. We'll move then to the consent agenda. We'll bring the items on the consent agenda up on the screen. And they include, consider the approval of the employee retirement resolutions from 2021. Consider the resolution designating the official newspaper. Consider the resolution designating the official depositories for city funds for 2022. Consider the resolution delegating authority to the city to make electronic fund transfers. Consider the approval of the 2022 workers' compensation insurance. Consider approval of the temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for SMSU Foundation. Consider the application for exempt permit for Marshall Golf Club Incorporated. Consider the approval of the quitclaim deed and exterior wall maintenance agreement and transfer of the property between the city of Marshall and Carmel Properties LLC. Consider the approval of the Merit Center / State of Minnesota amendments of lease number 5. Consider the authorization for the acceptance of the hazardous materials emergency preparedness grant for Southwest Chemical Assessment Team, and authorize the Director of Public Safety, Jim Marshall, to administer this grant, calling for a public hearing regarding the proposed commercial property tax abatement at 1604 East College Drive, the bituminous overlay project, authorization to advertise for bids, and finally, consider the approval of the bids and the project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda any member of the council wants removed for separate discussion?
Number 6.
number 8, please.
Any other item? Is there a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Don. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We will close the voting. And the motion passes. So agenda item number 6, consider the resolution designating the official depositories for city funds for 2022. Jim?
The question I have is, I think it's been several years since we've checked fees on these banks, and bank fees are something that can get very expensive fast. I guess I'm just looking for staff. What are our bank fees? Have we looked into if there's a bank that fees us less? Because I'm sure we're getting charged fees.
Good
Yeah.
evening, Mayor and Council. That's a great question, Council Member. Typically with your main bank account, we don't change that more than maybe once every 5 years, just because of all the work and all the different, I don't want to say amenities, all the different types. For instance, our liquor store has a virtual vault. So we have a lot of different services through our main depository. And currently, we are in a 5-year agreement with Bremer. So our earnings credit, which goes towards all those fees, are locked in for those 5 years. I can tell you it has definitely paid off over the last few years with interest rates dipping. So typically, maybe once every 5 years, and we did that back in 2019, I believe. So we still have a few more years, but it is a very long process to switch. So it's not very often that you want to switch just based on maybe saving a couple $100 here and there. But it is something that we do monitor. It's just typically.
So when you say that our fees have been locked in for 5 years too, so we're saying a 5-year contract with them, which I'm fine with.
Well,
But
and-
that's, so they're not every year increasing our fees.
No, and
Okay.
typically it's based off a volume. It's so much per transaction or so much per account or anything like that. So typically we don't see a huge fluctuation unless we add an additional service.
Okay. And I just know, I bring that as a business owner, because I check, just like you, we check fees and if we're in 5 years, if it's a good agreement, that's great. It's something that we should look into at least every 5 years.
Right, and it's a minimum of at least probably a 6-month commitment to make that change, just with all of the different entities that are, withdrawing or depositing into our accounts. And like I said, we do have a lot of different services through them. So it is a very time-consuming process.
Nope, understood. So I make a motion that we approve it.
Motion
I'll
by-
second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by John to approve the resolution designating the official depositories for city funds. Discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 8, consider the approval of the 2022 workers' compensation insurance. Russ?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just looking through this, I see we're going to have a significant increase in rates. A couple of questions. We experienced a high claims payout in 2020. Just curious if we're following up on those claims, trying to not let them happen again. I mean, I know when I was in business, every time we had a work comp claim, we had to investigate and do our best not to let it happen again. And I know sometimes it's out of the ordinary. You can't. Our mod rate has also increased because of these claims, and thereby, I question maybe if we should stick with a $5,000 deductible, but we're not going to save that much. But I look at more at trying to prevent, workman's comp is a necessary evil. We have to have it. But if there's things that we can do to help our employees try to avoid some of the incidents that may have happened in 2020, sometimes you can't. If an employee slips on ice or something and, whatever, but I just look at, we have to take safety as a high priority, and I know we do, but that mod rate, does that stay with us for a couple of years at least? It doesn't go back down, correct? And whatever, just help educate me a little bit.
Hi, Mayor and Council. So I'm going to address all your questions. So we do look at the safety of the high claims. So that goes to a safety committee. So the safety committee is continuously looking at causes and what we can do to increase the safety. Overall, the city has become or increased their safety across the board over the years. In 2016, we had a mod claim of 1.01, which the city was actually paying into a premium of a little over $1,000. So we are currently getting a decrease because of our experience mod, because it's at a 0.76. So in comparison to 2016, the city is overall doing really well. And then, so as far as your deductible question, I did work with our agent, and It's a 3-year look-back period, not including the current year. So we don't include 2021. And 2020 did have a couple of high claims. So we are going to see it stay at probably relatively in that higher range of 0.76. It could fluctuate a little bit until that 2020 falls off and we stay lower claims. $5,000 deductible is a middle of the road deductible. So therefore, in 2020, had we had a higher deductible, we would have been paying out a lot more than what the city did. So playing that risk game, nobody has a crystal ball. It's recommended that we really stay at that 5,000 deductible just to mitigate the risk.
Carl, part of my question I forgot to ask you, did we put this out for RFPs at all?
The workers' comp,
Yeah,
as far as RFPs, the League of Minnesota Cities covers our insurance.
okay,
And no, we did not.
okay. And on the back page of that stuff that we get from on our council packet, it says for 2022, workman's comp rates for overall members will increase, but an overall decrease in 2022 property casualty rates combined with the 15 million dividend that will be returned to members will help offset the rising work comp premiums. Is this a true statement that we're going to get some money back?
Yes, generally speaking, over the last few years, we've continuously gotten dividends back from the league.
Okay,
So we do see those dividends as well.
thank you.
Thank you, Carla. That was Carla Drown, Finance Director.
If I can add a little bit on this, and I know I chatted with Russ, a mod rating of 1 is average. So the city is below average, and I know, because I deal with mod ratings, workers' comp, not much cheaper than the cities, actually. But a mod rating of 1 is average. So we are below average, but the jump from 0.6 to 0.76 is a large jump, but the city of Marshall is still below average. And Carla's correct that we do get some we do get some credits because of that. Our goal is to keep that as a city staff below 1. Once we get above 1, then it gets really expensive really fast. So the city is doing very well at the 0.76. I explained this, so the public understands moderating of 1 is average. So when we're over 1, then we have a problem. So, but this overall is a good report for workers' comp.
Good. With that, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Russ.
Second.
Seconded by Jim for the renewal of the workers' compensation insurance for 2022. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting, and the motion passes. We'll move then to agenda item number 17, consider the renewal for the Red Baron Arena and Expo sponsorship agreement. With us is Cassie Weiss, Director of the Marshall Convention and Visitors Bureau. Cassie.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. So we have 2 agreements here for the Red Baron Arena sponsorship. The first one is Lockwood Motors. Not much has changed on their sponsorship from 5 years ago. It's basically a renewal. The only change would be the price per year, and then the price or the contract would be year to year with an auto renewal. Any questions on the Lockwood Motors one? I guess I'll entertain it. And then the second one that we have is Action Manufacturing, or Alada Action LLC. This is to take over naming rights of the main rink and expo floor in the Red Baron. This is a 10-year contract at $10,000 or $12,000 a year. There's some minimal upgrades to signage that will need to be done, some additional dashers, and then they would get a larger in-ice logo as well.
Questions for Cassie? Cassie, thank you for your work on these renewals. Is there a motion to approve the renewals of these sponsorship agreements? Motion by Russ, is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And a motion does pass. And the city, as well as Convention and Visitor Bureau, certainly appreciates the support of both of these businesses. It's important for the operation of this regional facility. We'll move then to agenda item number 18, the Economic Development Authority projects update. I'll call on Lauren Dietz, our Economic Development Authority Director.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, we'll pull that up. So I'm here tonight to introduce a new project we've been working on, as well as a few project updates, just to kind of keep the council ahead of where we're at and what will be coming forward in the near future. So Block 11, we've discussed this property a lot over the last 2 years that I've been here, and as well the 5-10 previous years. So I just wanted to update the council. Coldwell Banker Commercial Fisher Group is a complete service agency and leader in southern Minnesota commercial real estate industry. They're located in Mankato, and CBC Fisher Group recently approached the city on a potential mixed-use development on Block 11. We did sign a pre-development agreement with them in 2021, which has expired at this time, but we felt the project was far enough that we didn't need to extend that agreement. Specializing in redevelopment and infill projects, CBC Fisher Group was fond of Marshall's vibrant downtown and the proximity of Block 11 to services, amenities, the view of the park, the view of the river, a lot of things that the block has going for it naturally. CBC Fisher Group strives to fill gaps in the marketplace through their projects, which they work all over southern Minnesota, especially when it comes to housing. So in front of you is the project they proposed. It's a 3-phase project, mixed use, with construction starting this spring, if all goes as planned. Phase 1 would be a full residential unit with 33 one-bedroom units and 6 two-bedroom units. It's a 3-story build. And then to follow, Phase 2 and Phase 3 are the mixed-use buildings. Phase 2 would be an 18 one-bedroom units, 4 two-bedroom units, plus just over 4,000 square feet of first-floor commercial. Phase 3 is slated to be the same. However, we have talked about, depending on how rentals go, leasing goes, there may be a shift to Phase 3 to favor one or the other if they're seeing more need in one versus the other. So commercial space would be built to suit, and the apartments would fit the higher-end market needs, targeted towards recent grads, young professionals, empty nesters, kind of the higher-end markets. And you'll see the project layout. As you can see, the phases kind of fill each corner of the block. So Phase 1 you'll see on Lyon Street, and the corner of Lyon and First Street, and that's the strictly residential. Again, they liked the view over the river. The 3rd story gives it a view of the park. And then Phase 2 and 3 would fill the other 2 corners. There is sufficient parking with zoning. Of course, parking is always a concern, but we've had a lot of discussions with the development team on how we can address those issues. One thing we've discussed is Lyon Street is slated to be redeveloped here. I think in 2022 is what we have it scheduled, 2023.
Dependent on development and council action.
Correct. So with that, there'd be potential for on-street parking that would help with this development as we move forward through the phases. Here you'll see elevations and finishings of the project that they're proposing. These were brought to Planning Commission already to make sure that they followed the Heritage District guidelines. So these finishings were approved on the from the Planning Commission, but still nice to see what the building would look like. The one thing that Fisher Group really prides itself on is because it's an infill project, they didn't want it to be this. Of course, it's a new building in downtown, but they still wanted it to match the aesthetic of kind of the Heritage District and having that more classic aesthetic to it. So they were really respectful of how our downtown currently looks and how they could work that in without it being so obvious it's to a new build downtown. So I just included a few projects that they've worked on in other communities that would be very similar in the fact that either they're infill projects or redevelopment projects. So the large one you see on the left, Rock Lofts, that is a downtown project that was recently approved, and they're working on construction of that property now. Very similar to what we'd be looking at with the first floor commercial. Nothing too fancy in the outside appearance of the building in order to fit that downtown feel. A couple other projects, the LeSueur mixed use redevelopment is a great example of how they've taken, this was actually an old mall in downtown LeSueur, and they had to do some reconstruction of streets to accommodate the project, added some housing, and repurpose that property to make it new again and usable for the community. Studio 5 is just an apartment complex in Mankato that they recently completed. And Monks and Stadium is actually an older project, but it has the similar feel to what we'd be looking at here in our community. Some other things to note, they recently purchased the Redwood Area Hospital and will be converting that to housing, as well as the Skyline Mall in Albert Lee, and then the Madison East Center, that's actually a commercial build, but they're very good at these redevelopment projects. They have a long history of it, and they've been successful in being able to get those properties to a place that is helpful to the community. This is just an example of the Studio 5, the interior of the apartment. I can't say that this is what ours will look like, but this just gives you a feel for what they've done in the past with their 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments, more that studio feel, open layouts, higher end finishings. So this is the project that they completed in Mankato. And I just wanted to reflect back on our housing study results and just show the need for housing in our community. This would obviously fall into a market rate apartment, but it also does fill that void of single family housing. These are meant for people who aren't quite ready or aren't able to find the home that they're looking for. So it's just a higher end apartment downtown in order for them to fill that gap, which you can see in Marshall is very high right now. And just kind of next steps on the project, we do go to Planning Commission tomorrow for a conditional use permit. The project needs that because of the housing element within the zoning. And we're also bringing it forward on the TIF planning. So we need adherence to the comprehensive plan. So the Planning Commission will take a look at that tomorrow. Next steps from City Council standpoint, we will bring forward a request for TIF. That will be coming. We'll call for public hearing on the 25th with steps to follow. I do believe I concluded the entire schedule within the packet, but kind of a February to March timeframe for all of the public hearings and working through the documents needed in order for that TIF to be brought forth. And then the goal of this project is to start construction this spring with 1 phase being completed each year, all 3 phases being completed by 2025. Of course, dependent on materials and things that we know are a challenge to get right now. So again, they have requested redevelopment TIF be used on this project. That's something that from a Block 11 standpoint, we have always kind of pushed for. When we started demoing that block, we knew that that was the intention. So I just wanted to remind council of what eligible costs are. With a redevelopment TIF, we don't have the rent restrictions like we do on a housing TIF, but less costs are eligible for those projects. Basically anything above ground won't be eligible. So things like the parking lot and some street assessment work could be included within this TIF project. So any questions on that project?
Lauren, maybe it's just a typo on the agenda item report that we received.
Mm-hmm.
It says the Phase 3 was on the corner of College and Main. It's not on the corner of College and Main because then that's the Varsity Pub, is that correct?
Sorry,
Yeah.
phase 3 would be College and Lyon.
College and Lyon,
Yes.
right?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, College and Lyon.
Just correction.
Yes, yep.
Any other questions?
And CBC Fisher Root will be present at future meetings to answer additional questions as well.
Very good.
And again, just since I was presenting tonight, I was just going to run through a few other projects that we had going on. We did recently relaunch our Facade Improvement program. We started receiving applications for that. It is the $10,000 matching grant, up to $100,000 in total funds. So far, we have 2 applications. We expect that money to go fast. There's been a lot of interest. So please spread the word to local businesses looking for new signage. Anything facade, really, but typically signage is what we see the most of in this grant. Another thing I wanted to mention for our comp plan, we were supposed to hold an open house this week, a public open house to get feedback, and with everything going on with the COVID surge, we've decided to push that, so that'll now be in February. But we do have the online survey still open for people to take. As of our check-in last Thursday, we had 291 responses. Our goal was 300. But of course, the more feedback we get, the better. So we encourage people to continue taking that survey as it remains open. And the last thing I bring forward this evening, it was mentioned, I think previously at council, our home tax abatement program. It's set to expire at the end of this year. And we have seen some success in that program, but our EDA board did discuss at our December meeting that we would make the recommendation to end that program early. We just don't feel as though the program is doing what it was designed to do. We've seen a lot of success on the commercial side. It's kind of encouraged projects to move, but we don't know that that's having the same effect on the home side. So our recommendation to council is just to expire that program June 30th, giving people enough time to apply if they wish to do so, but not feeling as though it needs to go through the end of the year. That is everything I have this evening.
Questions for Lauren? John or Steve as liaisons to EDA, any comments you want to add?
No, Lauren summarized it very well. There was a lot of discussion on that home side tax abatement, and for exactly what she said, we decided, and if we get feedback saying we want it, or we get a jump in business, well, then we'll reconsider, but the recommendation would be to let it expire in June.
And then just, on the other side, on the facade improvements, we did increase that. These are dollars that came from the state, Minnesota Investment Fund. And so we've had that basically in the bank for a while, not doing much of anything. And so we decided to resurrect that program again and increase some dollar amounts on it and try to get some more things improved. And it looks like we've already got 2 applications in, so that's a good start.
Thank you. And Lauren, thank you also for your work and on the 3 areas that you highlighted. And I know there's many other things you're working on too, but certainly it's long awaited good news on the Block 11 potential development. The facade improvement is always a good program for what you described as our vibrant downtown already. And as far as the home property tax abatement, when I get to my part at the end of the meeting, I do want to make some additional comments about that part. So thank you. Any other questions or comments for EDA report or Lauren? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move then to agenda item number 19, consider authorization for professional services with Tkda for airport zoning ordinance update. Jason Anderson, Director of Public Works, City Engineer.
Thank you, Mayor. Tkda has prepared the attached authorization for services that you've got in your council packet. Our existing airport zoning ordinance dates back to 1978. MnDOT Aeronautics is very interested in our updating that ordinance, so that's why they did come forward and give us a grant award for that work. So Tkda has put this together for your consideration. The total cost of the work by Tkda is $49,500. Of that cost, 70% of it is funded by MnDOT, 30% of it is funded locally. So if there are any questions of the council, I can try to address them.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Questions for Jason? If there's no questions, is there a motion to approve the services agreement with Tkda?
So moved.
Motion by Don, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. Oh,
Got it.
and the motion does pass, just in time. We'll move then to the agenda item number 20, the wastewater treatment facilities improvement project. Consider the change order number 2, the final change order, as well as the final payment application to Magni Construction. Once again, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the final change order and the final payment for our very large wastewater treatment facility project that has now come to a close. By making this final payment, we can eliminate Magny from the conversation. They've done an excellent job on the project of doing everything we could have asked and working well with our team out there to make sure we could process sewage as needed as we were doing the improvements. They were really great to work with. So you'll note that we're slightly under budget on the project. We're $26,000 under. Total project cost was just over $14 million. City would recommend that we approve the final change order and make the final payment.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Questions or comments?
I just question, comment. So this large project had one change order besides this one?
That is correct. So there was one other change order that was a time extension actually towards the end there to allow some additional time to get some final paperwork and things completed. This was a unique project being that there was a lot of mechanical things. There was built-in allowance into the project to handle certain difficult items that we would never be able to give a hard number on. So there was a little extra funding through the allowance built in to cover that. That's part of the reason why there weren't change orders, because it would be impossible to do this project without having something had we not done that.
Well, I give credit. I think that with no change orders, this is how a project should work. It should not come to council every couple of weeks with change orders. And I want to give credit to your staff, to who designed this, to have a $14 million project coming under budget. This is, the second project in the last couple of months. The city has come under budget with very few change orders. This is how a project should work, and good for you guys, good for who designed it. I give them all credit. This is how they should all work. And
Thank you.
I just want people to know that.
Thank you, Councilman. Our team did a nice job. And then, of course, Bolton and Mank, the primary designer, did an excellent job. We agree.
And Mr. Mayor, I think, since we didn't have the last meeting in December, I think Councilman DeCramer and I had an opportunity to tour it with past Superintendent Van Moore. And while probably a lot of the things were Greek to me, John understood a lot more than I did. But, he was very, what should I say? He was glowing a little bit because of all the work that was done out there. And rightfully so. He put in a lot of time and a lot of effort, and along with a number of staff. But again, Bob Van Moore, if you're listening, if you're whatever, but thank you for your service and thank you for giving us a tour that day. John.
Yes.
Yep.
I was going to mention the same thing, that I didn't know if the rest of you got a chance to tour it. It's an impressive site. A lot of thought went into it to use efficiency in the motor drives or efficiency in just the operation. And, it was a nice job.
Very good. With that, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Jim, to approve the change order number 2 and the final payment application to Magny Construction. Discussion on the motion. If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 21 is South First Street, Greeley Street, Williams Street reconstruction. The action would be to consider the resolution approving the plans and specifications and ordering the advertisement for the bids. Once again, Jason.
Thanks, Mayor. So we've talked about this project a little bit here as we've been walking through the assessment process, but the special assessment project process. This project consists of the reconstruction, complete reconstruction and utility replacement on South First from George to Greeley, on Greeley Street from West College Drive to Saratoga, and on Williams Street from Maple to George. Generally, the proposed roadway width of Greeley and South First is proposed to be 38 feet as measured from back of curb, and the width of Williams is proposed to be 29 feet as measured from back of curb. Williams will go back in about how it comes out. The other two may be narrowed in some locations. The width is a little variable between 36 and 38 feet, and 40 feet today. So it depends on where you're at, but it'll be generally slightly narrowed. Sidewalk will be replaced where it exists today, with the exception of the addition of sidewalk between DeShepper and Maple. on the east side of First Street where there is not today. Adding sidewalk there provides opportunity for later reconstruction projects on Maple, Lawrence, Robert, in that area to provide sidewalk connectivity into that area. So we can add it there without impacting a lot of existing mature trees, so staff has proposed to put that in. We have prepared plans and specifications. Our engineering team has done a nice job of getting on that and doing a very proficient job. We're ready to go. So you do have a resolution in the packet to consider. The engineer's estimate for the project is currently about $1.95 million, including contingency and engineering. We're up just shy of $2.5 million. We would propose to assess the project in accordance with the current special assessment policy. At this point in time, we're targeting a bid opening date of February 4th to bring to council February, I think it's the 8th, the following Tuesday. It is the 8th. So with that, staff would recommend to approve the resolution and order the advertisement of bids.
Thank you, Jason. Questions for Jason?
Jason, just a question. You said you were going to add sidewalk between DeShepper and Maple?
That is what we're
on the east
proposing at this point in time. That's
And there is
correct.
sidewalk on the west side?
That is correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? If
No
not,
questions, just a comment that, I know we said it in the past, but, you know, this is our first meeting of the year and you're all ready to go out for bids on a project for this year. So that's good work and a lot of hard work by our engineering department. So this is a way of saving us some money when we get out there for the bids. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
motion by John, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to agenda item 22. This is the Halber Road Reconstruction Project. Once again, the similar action resolution approving the plans and specifications and ordering the advertisement for bids. So Jason, Halber Road.
Thank you, Mayor. Going back to Councilman DeCramer's comment on the last item, thank you for that. That's a testament to Jesse Dean, Jeff Stelter, everybody in the team's work, as well as the councils for quickly getting us into PIT and helping us through that. So thank you. Halber Road is a project that consists of the complete reconstruction and utility replacement of Halber between Erie and Michigan. You see on the screen. We'll be doing sanitary sewer replacement and storm sewer replacement, more intakes, some more storm sewer piping than we originally intended. So I'll have to apologize. The cost estimate in the packet is probably a little low. We've had to, in late design here, add some more pipe replacement there to get better cover over the pipe in the road and make sure things work better. We are proposing a road at 38 feet wide, which is roughly 5 feet narrower than what it is today. Project plans and specifications have been prepared. Once again, we're in a very good spot. We're not quite complete, but we're right there. We'll be ready to go shortly. Engineer's estimate for the construction portion of this project, we have 1.15 million. As I indicated, it might be slightly higher than that. Adding engineering and contingency, that's 1.5 million. Staff is proposing a February 16th bid opening date for this project, and we would bring it to council for action at the second meeting in February. That's our target. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't meet that goal. So with that, we would recommend to order the advertisement. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by John, seconded by Russ. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to agenda item number 23, East Lyon Street Trail Project. We have a resolution authorizing agent for the sponsoring agency, Transportation Alternatives Project, as well as a resolution identifying the responsibility for the operation and maintenance for the Transportation Alternatives Project. Jesse, do you have this, or Jason? Jason.
I've got this, thank you. But Jesse is here to help fill in where we need to. Jesse put all the work into getting this grant ready, so. But District 8 is currently soliciting for a Transportation Alternatives Grant for 2026. The TA grant's an 80-20 match program that funds pedestrian facilities like this and safe routes to school, bike facilities, historic preservation. There's kind of a list, but city staff worked with the community services team to identify if there were any locations where we could apply for these funds. We did come up with the area identified in the drawing there in green. We originally proposed completing the link there between Bruce and Minnesota 23 along East Lyon on the south side of the road. This would replace current on-street trail section in this area. After putting this out there and putting our initial letter of interest in, not application, but letter of interest in, MnDOT has since reached out and informed us that they would like us to not take the project all the way to Minnesota 23. They'd like us to stop short, maybe Jewett or somewhere else. Their traffic office is not, the District 8 traffic office doesn't really want to encourage as many crossings at that location as we may induce by making that connection. So it's a little bit, took us by a little bit of surprise, but maybe we shouldn't be so surprised because it isn't the safest crossing if you just have that free without any control. It's obviously a fast road. It's a wide expressway. It's on a curve. The cars kind of come up quick. It's not the best location. So we understand where they're coming from. We just put it in there because it would be a nice link in our bike trail network. And obviously MnDOT has the crossing already installed through the intersection. So we sort of assumed that they were ready for this type of connection. And that is not true. So they put the crossing in through that during design because their central office in St. Paul required them to, I believe. They didn't want to have a barrier of crossing there. So we did discuss that into some detail. That being said, they're open to the rest of the project as proposed. We could just stop it short at Jewett. They did indicate that we could probably amend our application to go further west if we wanted to, potentially all the way to Main Street along Lyon. So staff would like, as part of this motion, maybe the council's blessing, if you so choose to, tell us to work towards that too and extend the project, and we will certainly look into that. So that being said, to complete our grant application, we do need a couple resolutions passed by the council. One resolution that offers your support and identifies us as the grant sponsor, and the other one that identifies us as the responsible party for maintenance and operations. With that, I or Jesse can answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Especially given that there is controlled intersection crossings up and down that road, there's the pedestrian overpass and pedestrian underpass. I think MnDOT's direction is wise not to encourage pedestrians or bicycles at that crossing Highway 23 at that intersection. I think that's a good move. So, other questions or input?
Mr. Mayor, I think if I remember right, when we were talking about replacing the trails in Independence Park with concrete, there was a council member that said we're not replacing the sidewalk along East Lyon Street. Is that correct? I just have a hard time accepting the fact that we've got to tear up good concrete out there and replace that sidewalk.
So maybe I can address that. If your question is, are we replacing, will we have to tear up any sidewalk that we just put in for this project? And we will not. We've got
Not that you just put in, that's been there.
Oh, sure.
It's been there along for the last umpteen years. You replace that, as far as, I think we were told at that time that concrete was in good shape. That's why we were not replacing it with the trails in Independence Park.
Correct. That concrete along Lyon Street, I believe it's 5-foot walk, is probably in pretty reasonable condition. That's true. So we could look at options with a grant to use what's there and add width to it. Sometimes that doesn't save you as much money as you think it may. Sometimes you might end up with differential settlement in the panels, and that's not good. But we can certainly look at it and talk about that as a team as we get into design if we're awarded a grant.
The other thing to consider is that if this project would be awarded and approved for this grant, construction is 2026.
Correct.
So MnDOT has set a very long time frame in planning their projects, so.
The other thing I think we should take note is if this project is approved, we can get all those kids riding their bikes off that street. And I understand there's good concrete, but I think of the safety issues there too. And I've driven down that street while school is letting out or letting in or going in. And it's a busy area, and I would love to see those kids on a 10-foot trail than on that street. So I think for that purpose, we may get rid of good concrete, but if we can save one kid getting hit by a car, I'd throw all the concrete away to save that kid.
Other input?
Just a thought on if you're not going to Highway 23, obviously going to Main Street would be a possibility. Probably some more residential in through there. The other option would be, we do have the underpass, between the college and the high school, is to potentially continue that line in some manner to tie into that area as well. Obviously, wouldn't be involved in this project, but for a future, phase in, another phase would be to add in to go and connect then up to the existing trail that's on that side, which would allow for under the 23 and be obviously very safe at that point. So just a thought on that.
We can certainly work with community services on that and identify ways to get to that underpass and how we can work toward that.
Other input? If not, you have the request for the authorization to be part of this grant application process, two parts of this that can be handled in one motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion by Jim, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 24 is North First Street, West Redwood Street, West Marshall Street Reconstruction Project. We'll consider the resolution declaring the cost to be assessed and ordering the preparation of the proposed assessment, as well as the resolution for the hearing on the proposed assessment. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. This was last year's reconstruction around Bremer Bank and in that area, North First Street, Redwood, Marshall. Complete reconstruction project, all utilities, street, sidewalk, the works. You'll see a cost breakdown sheet in your packet. You'll note that wastewater picked up about 13% of the cost, MMU 22%, surface water 17%, city ad valorem 25%, and assessments 22.5% roughly. So a good mix of project costs being split amongst different entities. Included in the packet, you've got the resolution for hearing on proposed assessment, where we are setting the hearing date for February 8th for this project. Staff is proposing an 8-year assessment period with a 2.8% interest rate. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but we would recommend to approve the resolutions.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Don,
I'll second.
seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 25 is the 2021 state aid overlay project, the SRTS School Pedestrian Crossing Improvement Project. We'll consider the resolution for the Municipal State Aid System 2022 Advance Funds. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. The 2021 State Aid Overlay Project, Z88, is substantially completed. We did that this last year. We haven't closed it or finalized that project yet because there are still a little bit of ped ramp work that needs to be done at council direction on North 4th Street. So we'll still plan to get that done next year. The purpose of this resolution is to advance state aid funds to make bond payments for that overlay project, as well as to cover any city costs for this year's RRFB pedestrian crossing project. Because we have a negative account balance for our state aid account or an advanced fund balance, we need to put in a resolution annually if we're going to use funds, essentially gaining their approval to advance more funds. That's what this is about, asking to advance funds to cover bond payment and RRFB project costs. You've got the resolution attached, and we can try to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Russ,
I'll second.
second by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 26 is calling for a public hearing regarding a proposed property tax abatement, location 1204 Stockholm. Questions on this? If not, is there a motion to call?
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Don. Discussion? If not,
Mr. Mayor, just a question for the developer. Is this house currently built?
Half.
So it's probably going to be another 60 days or whatever before it could be occupied or longer?
Approximately.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll note there's one abstention. Agenda item number 27, call for a public hearing regarding proposed property tax assessment, property tax abatement at 1304 Stockholm. Once again, are there any questions on this?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by John,
Second?
second by Russ. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. And the motion passes. And the final public hearing to call for is a proposed property tax abatement, location 311 Brussels Court. Questions? Motion?
Moved.
Motion by Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Russ. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes with one abstention. Agenda item number 29, Commission Board Liaison reports. Mine actually have not met since we last met. Steve?
Cable Commission has not met. Community Services Advisory Board did meet, but I was at work and was not able to get there. And the EDA, we kind of talked about earlier with Lauren, so.
Good. Don?
Housing Commission met yesterday. Mostly normal items. They did have their yearly apartment inspection, and I was told they went pretty well, except for about 2 units. And then those 2 units get about another week notice, and they're rechecked again. So things were pretty well. And they have been notified about because they're in the neighborhood of the apartment complex that could be going up kitty corner from them, and they have no opinion on it. And Planning Commission meets tomorrow night. So, thank you.
Very good. John?
As Councilman Meister's mentioned, we pretty well covered the EDA work that's been going on. Marshall Municipal Utilities did meet on the 21st, and they passed their budget as well, and pretty much wrapped up did actions to wrap up the year. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission did meet this past week. I was not able to attend, and apparently there was a few other words because we've got some special action we need to take. I think the meeting is this Thursday, so that's it.
Okay, very good. Russ?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Library Board met last night. We adopted the 2022 budget. They are also looking at, and it's just strictly an idea only that Michelle presented, maybe closing a couple hours earlier during the summer months, and then closing a couple hours earlier on Saturday, just because, again, the traffic count isn't there until 8 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday, and on Saturday it goes down, especially during the summer months when it seems like a lot of people head out of town or have other things going on. They don't want to go to the library, and that's for the Marshall branch only, or Marshall location only. The other branches would stay at their regular hours, but other than that, that's it. Marshall Air Transit, I was not able to make that last meeting, and Convention and Visitors Bureau, I believe, will meet next week. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Jim?
I did not meet.
We'll move then to council member individual items. Jim, let's start at your end.
I have nothing.
Russ?
Oh. I have received a letter from Mr. Taylor again, and I'll pass it along to you, that he's asking about maybe council or city help with maybe some of the blighted houses we have at downtown. He said you offer TIF money and abatements and everything else, and he said, and he wasn't mad or anything else. He said maybe it's an idea that the city needs to look at. If somebody wants to tear down a house, maybe the city can give them a couple $1,000s to help with that expense. And that's, so he gave us a note, and he was referencing a piece of property right next to the chicken connection, and he thought it was owned by somebody else. But thanks to Dennis, he did a little research, and it wasn't owned by that party. It was owned by another party. So I'll just pass this around if you would like to see it. But again, Mr. Taylor's idea was, thought maybe that the city could somehow come up with some dollars to help with some demolition of some blighted properties to help improve our city. That's what he's saying. So Jim, we'll start with you. The other thing I have is I noticed that Walmart, and this is a sore subject I believe that we've had for a long time, Walmart has some containers sitting there, and we have a green container sitting alongside of a house over on Sarah Circle. Just curious if they've applied for conditional use permits or what. I know I talked to Ilya about it before, and he thought letters were going out. I thought he told me letters are going out. So just curious if we've got any kind of update on those containers. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, yes, Councilman, we've been talking about that, and I'd have to check with Ilya tomorrow. I don't believe the letters have been sent yet, but they will be sent out soon. We've got the list put together. We know where we're sending them. I think it's just a matter of getting everything lined up and ready to go. So we are proceeding that way. We've taken your action, your direction, and we'll take action on it.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
John?
Nothing, just taking a look at this letter from Mr. Taylor, and I would agree, that'd be something to very definitely look at, so.
Steve?
I have nothing.
Don?
Nothing.
There's also a property on Windstar that's like partially, there's a foundation there, and then it like construction stopped, grew up with weeds. That one might need some attention also. So, Jason and Jesse and I had met with the committee of the school board that is looking at the crossings, and really a good discussion. But one additional item that did come up was by one of the school board members was a intersection that's not part of one of the pedestrian crossings, but might be a candidate in the future, and that's at East Main and A Street, where the crossing is coming from the residential area going over to the YMCA. Quite a bit of traffic there, and quite a bit of space between controlled intersections, and quite a bit of cross traffic and pedestrian traffic, and during the summer bicycle traffic going to the YMCA and that area. So this school board member was suggesting that might be a place for a future application for a advanced or activated pedestrian crossing sign. We did have those portable ones there for a while, and they were largely ineffective because once they were there for a while, then people started to just ignore them. So the other thing that I would discuss is this is the first meeting of the year. Actually, my 30th first meeting of the year as mayor. So, and traditionally, I kind of go through a list of 10 things that I think are priorities for the community. And I'll just go through that list. And these are things that either we have discussed or potentially can discuss in the future. And first on that list would be the aquatic center, our replacement plan for the aquatic center. The council had a work session on that earlier this evening. That will be, I believe, a priority for 2022. Second thing I'd have on my list would be our appeal of the census number. I think that's quite important. I think, as we've talked about before, we had a very obvious undercount because of the timing of the census with COVID and with the university shut down, and we had a very obvious undercount. The challenge will be whether or not we can change those numbers through appeal. I know Kyle is working on that. Third would be the 150th celebration. That planning process is underway, and probably at one of the future meetings, we'll have an update on some of the activities that are planned. Somewhat in conjunction with that, the completion of the downtown plaza that I know, staff has done work on, and the City Hall Building Committee had preliminary discussions, and I think the direction is and the goal is to have a reasonable plan that could be constructed, hopefully by our own staff. Next on my list would be the comprehensive plan adoption, and we heard earlier that the public input meeting will be delayed, but that will be something hopefully we can adopt in 2022. And then for economic development, I actually have 4 items. One is, we've discussed earlier, the Block 11 development. That will be a welcome project to downtown. The Ralco Corporate Center in downtown, working with Ralco leadership on how that will be an asset to downtown, how parking can be managed, how other things can be managed there to make their relocation successful. And then we have the Shopko building reuse that I think we're all interested in, and certainly our EDA is working on, as well as our Commerce Park potential prospects. That continues to be a need, and probably we need to refocus some marketing efforts on Commerce Park. And then finally, item I referred to earlier is with the sunsetting of our property tax abatement for new construction. I'd like to see some thought given to a property tax abatement targeted at first-time homeowners in the community. We have a need for that entry-level homeowners for property tax, for some assistance, and maybe property tax abatement might be the way to do that. That would maybe be helpful in young professionals or young people relocating to the community, that new teacher moving to town, or that is looking at some permanency and buying a home. And I'd like to ask the EDA to kind of look into that. I know that there's some other communities that are looking at a similar item that are also in a similar situation where the new construction home property tax abatement, probably because of the vibrancy of the home building industry right now, probably is less needed, but there still is that need for the first-time homeowner. So I'd offer that as my suggestions and what my thoughts are for this year. With that, I'll move us then to the next agenda item, which would be our staff report, starting with Sharon Hansen, City Administrator.
As most of you are aware, our Director of Administrative Services last day is February 3rd. We did put out an ad for Applicants, we received 3, which wasn't a large number, but 3 very good applicants. And I will consult with the Personnel Committee and get their input, possibly participation in the interviews. And I think we will interview all 3 applicants since we're able to do that. And I will work with Carla and Ed on transition and need their assistance as we get to the next individual to fill that position. And other than that, be working really close with our Human Resources Director on the MIN-OSHA COVID vaccination and testing compliance policy, which we will bring back on January 25th, and anticipate that at that time there can be validation of vaccination records that would allow people not to have to wear a mask, at least under the regulation from Minnesota OSHA. Obviously, voluntary is up to the individual. And we have actually had, at least last week, or a little bit better this week, we've had at the city employee level higher incidences of cases of COVID. We had quite a few last week, and we are challenged a little bit with that from time to time. But this week is a little bit better. So I know we did have a brief discussion with the Avera Marshall CEO today about just what they're seeing for cases and urgent care, which has been extremely busy. And they're doing the best they can. Their new facility, and I know Dr. Weiser can explain this, has helped with efficiency greatly, is what was reported by Debbie Stryer. So we're grateful for that, but they also had over 100 people show up for testing for COVID too, so more challenges as well. And I'll pause there. I don't know if Dr. Meister wants to add anything to that, and that's all I had though, Mr. Mayor, so.
Yeah, the COVID is going crazy, and we're spiked higher than, we reflect what the nation is showing. And if anybody's been out to try to get a test, you can't get a test outside of hospitals. We are running out of testing supplies ourselves because of the demand and supply chain issues, and our staffing is short, we're out, it's just everywhere. So henceforth why we're wearing masks again.
Mr. Mayor, just for everybody's information, I did have a conversation with Dr. Meister last week regarding the 2 parties that are scheduled this week city. One being Friday night, and that has been postponed, and the other for the employees. The other one being held on Saturday night, that's for the fire department. And again, I expressed, the fire department's a great organization. I support them 110%, but there are also a lot of us retired older people that go to that party, and I would hate to see something come out of that event. And I talked to Sharon today a little bit. We tried to offer a testing out at the Red Baron Arena, and it seemed like that came back to bite us in the backside a little bit because, we're using a city-owned building for testing, and kids are out there and everything else. But I just want to bring it out front that I am concerned with that party still being held or planned on being held on Saturday evening, and the spread of COVID as it is going that we know of today. I don't think it's going to get better in 3 or 4 days, but I am concerned. I don't know if Jim, if you want to address that at all, or Dr. Meister. I just bring it up so everybody's aware of it.
And I do think we had discussion on that, and I know that the chief had sent out a letter to each of the people who had made a RSVP, giving them the option to change their RSVP to wear masks if they are going there, and he also discussed distancing as much as possible. But I think rescheduling was a challenge for him. Jim, I don't know if you want to expand on that. So.
Good evening, council. Yes, you know, Quentin and I have had some lengthy discussions in the last couple of days of trying to discern on how we proceed, you know, with the recognition of it for our fire department. Last year, we canceled that event, hoping to reschedule, and we were never able to lock in on another date to reschedule because of training and some other conflicts. So they skipped it. And we discussed that again, and when we looked at the schedule coming up for their training and anticipated tactical rescue, CAT team weekend training events, we figured it was probably going to be the same thing where we wouldn't be able to hold that event. You know, emergency services, we've kind of have a little bit of a different response to COVID than maybe other organizations. We continue to meet, plan, train together. We continue to respond to calls and services within the city together. And we've navigated through some of these difficult times with significant exposures to the police department, to the fire department. And we've always been able to provide the services to our community. We looked at different events within our city, sporting events, school activities, concerts, ball games that haven't been rescheduled. And those were all part of our, you know, I guess, discussions that we had. Mayor did mention that Quentin did send out an email to everybody that was planning to attend the event, express the concerns that you have, that we have, and encourage them, you know, that to social distance, to wear masks if they can, to if they're not comfortable with coming to the event, that we understand we'll support that decision. And, you know, we just tried to move forward the best that we can. When I get those concerns, I don't know. We'll obviously follow the direction of the council. But we made a decision and are planning to move forward. I don't know if we cancel, if we stop that event. You know, I think we've committed to the purchase of food. I'm guessing that's SMSU who is providing food service for that event. There could be side effects from that as well.
Thank you, Jim.
No, it sounds like you and Quentin and the mayor have done everything possible, so all you can do is hope for the best at this point. Yeah.
Well, we hope.
Thank you.
But, yeah.
Okay, with that, Sharon, were you done with your report? Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to build upon what Lauren said earlier regarding the comp plan open house and the rescheduling. I think that you guys, the council all received an email with the new date and maybe a flyer, and we would just encourage you to help boost that message and spread the message of the new date on February 16th from 4 to 6. We still want to encourage folks to come out if they're comfortable and willing on that date to give us some input. So we would like your help in spreading the message for that. Note taken on the A Street RFB crossing there. Thanks for bringing that up. And I had almost forgotten about that being brought up at the conversation that we had last week. We'll soon have costs for those type of treatment when we get our project bid this year. So we'll know what it'll take to get more put in if we have more locations, and we can certainly have some future discussions. I'd like to just update the council that it's likely we'll be receiving more airport funding. The federal bipartisan infrastructure law, I think, has resulted in more funding for airports, and to the tune of maybe $295,000 for our airport. The funds will be very similar to our AIP funds, our federal funds. We currently get $150,000 of those every year for very specific items that have to be very specifically spent. But it looks like an additional infusion, and that amount may come over 5 years as well. So we'll see how that shakes out when we get more information. We'll work with our partners at Tkda to review and discuss how those funds can be used, and then we'll come back and talk to the council at a later date. Lastly, I received a message from MnDOT today regarding the College Drive project. It's a little bit different. It sounds like they may be open to extending the project limits out to Bruce Street, which is something that we as city staff have kind of pushed for a while because we've got some utility need in that intersection. And I don't know exactly what changed, but I think that they are maybe open to that. They're going to review what that might do to cost and how that might affect their project. But it sounds like there's a possibility that they'll include that in their project limits, and that'll allow us to get sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and water main improvements done through that intersection, which we badly need. So that was a positive development that we'll keep you abreast of. If they decide to do that, they'll have to come in front of the council and amend the layout that they already came and approved with you. So we'll be having more conversations on that. So provided the costs can be fit in for them, and we're open to covering our costs, that could be a possibility. That's all I've got.
Any questions for Jason? If not, Dennis?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I had been working with the CVB and Scott Vandermillen on the extensions of those contracts out at the Red Baron. So you've acted on that. Transfer of the property and a wall maintenance agreement with the property adjacent or next door here. Those you've acted on. And then tomorrow, building officials and myself meet with a court-appointed mediator to try to resolve or discuss Broadmoor Valley issues related to the council order for the removal of the manufactured homes. So that is to start at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and everybody's got the entire day crossed off to deal with that. So I'll let you know what happens.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Dennis? If not, you have the remaining items on the agenda, our administrative reports, our information items, including the building permits, and our listing of upcoming meetings. Is there anything else to come forward at this meeting? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Jim to adjourn. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting. The motion passed. We are adjourned.